Hello, friends, and welcome to a Hasty Podcast. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm your host, Weston Hasty, and today I am joined by Alex Duquette.
Hello, everybody. Oh, man, my voice skipped. It kind of got...
Hang on. Okay, figure out puberty real quick. Let me start over.
Hold
Hello, friends, and welcome
We'll never figure out puberty.
to a Hasty Podcast. I'm your host, Weston Hasty. You're listening to a Hasty Podcast. I'm today joined by Alex Duquette.
Hello, everybody. That's all right. I'll take it.
I couldn't hear you. We're going to have to do it again.
It's good enough. I still didn't figure out puberty, though. I still didn't get that part.
Has anyone figured out puberty?
Do we figure out puberty? Or do we just go through it and then we just hope that we never have to go through it again?
We all experience it, but figuring it out, that seems like a really tall order.
That's just a part of growing up. I remember going through puberty at an earlier age than like my peers, a lot of the friends I hung out with, because I remember I was the sixth grader who was already getting the peach fuzz, and I remember being really embarrassed about that, and I was also very embarrassed about stinking. So do you remember in fifth grade, Weston and I went to the same school together.
Yes.
And in fifth grade, we had the talk, not the birds and the bees talks, but we had the you're going to be going through puberty talks, right? Okay.
Oh, I've got a side story about the birds and the bees, but we can get to that later.
Let's get to that, but let me finish this up first. I don't know if you remember this. I don't think we were in the same fifth grade class, but I'm assuming probably all the boys got together in one room and all the girls did in the other, and I think. Do you remember this day? Because I remember this day.
The one in fifth grade, it's going to blow your mind. It blows everyone's mind from our class. I didn't attend. I wasn't there.
Was that... Was that a parental decision, or...
No. I had, because I never told my parents what we were going to do at school.
Were you embarrassed?
I didn't ever know. I was always reading my books and doing schoolwork. I didn't pay attention to that crap. When it happened on the day, it happened on the day. So it's not like I didn't have parental consent. If I ever brought a form home, they signed it, and I brought it to school. There was never a concern. I never went to this talk thing that everyone talks about. I don't know where I was.
So you still don't... You're telling me that you're almost 30 and you don't know how your body works.
Yes.
You still
Alex,
don't know.
I need you to tell me about my body. Am I getting hair or not?
I don't know. I can't answer that one.
I have a full beard. Am I going to be getting hair in weird places?
Yes, you will. You will. It just comes with age. But that's funny. I didn't know that. But I remember, so the guy showed up and he reminded me of John Stamos. For some reason, he just looked like him to me. And that was kind of funny to me at the time, because a lot of the boys, you're in fifth grade, so you're not taking this stuff seriously. You think it's funny because you're looking at a diagram of the male anatomy, right? Like an internal diagram, how it looks, how it works. That was what was shown on the projector that day, okay? And we're all giggling because we see a pee-pee, right? So we're laughing at him, we're laughing at this and laughing at that. But then, at the end of it, we were all given a stick of deodorant. That was on the house. Start wearing deodorant. Okay.
I know I didn't get a stick of deodorant.
This is true. If anyone else were in this room that went to our school, they would remember, at least who were there. They'd go, I remember the deodorant. I don't remember what kind I got. I went home and I threw it away. I was embarrassed to think I am not gonna stink. Nope. And for some reason that stuck with me. For all of fifth grade, no way. I don't need this. I'm fine. I stunk so bad. I needed deodorant. I know I did.
I feel like...
Why the embarrassment, though?
Well, I feel like it's because you must have imagined that, stinking was something that you weren't supposed to do. You must have taken that talk and not really heard it, right?
No, absolutely not.
You're like, oh, you're going to be stinky. You're like, no, there's nothing wrong with me. There's no reason I would stink. No, but,
right.
That's just natural, right? You get older, you start getting the BO that I'm slowly growing into an adult. And what you heard was oh yeah, if something's wrong with you, you're going to start stinking.
There's something wrong with you.
There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not going to stink. I've never stunk before. I'm not going to stink now.
Right. Yeah. Point is, I got to a point very soon after that to where I was stinking before anyone else was stinking. By that, I just mean going through the motions, my voice was getting lower very quickly, and all of a sudden, I feel like for most kids in our class, I was through puberty pretty quick, and then all of a sudden, I saw everyone else do it the next year, and I'm like,
I've got the jump on you.
I got the jump on you. Anyway.
Because I feel like It's not that I was slow to puberty necessarily, but as far as like the body odor stuff,
Yeah.
I was very slow to that. I was someone who didn't sweat a lot in general. And then when I did, I openly admit that I don't have a very good schnoz anyway. So I don't have a good sense of smell as it
That's
is.
been brought up a lot these last few days.
It has. I bring it up a lot. Ever since COVID and the whole, like, if you catch COVID, you won't be able to smell. And I'm like, well, turns out I can't smell anyway.
who cares?
So anyway, something about, like, I don't generally get BO anyway. So that was a whole conversation. Like I said, I never went to this meeting where they have a talk about puberty and BO and getting deodorant sticks and any of that. My memory of it, because I didn't have that talk, is all of a sudden, moving on from 5th grade into middle school when we're going to the gym and locker rooms and stuff, everybody's obsessed with Axe body spray.
Oh my God, don't get me started on the Axe.
Everyone's obsessed with Axe body
Yes.
spray. Here I am showing up with like nothing to start with.
Right.
And I didn't need it. Like,
Yeah.
honest to God. Like, not one of those teenagers where it's like, I didn't like to use it, or like I should use it, but I clearly need it but refuse to. No, like literally, I just don't sweat enough to create BO.
Yeah.
It must be genetic or something, because not even my family was concerned about it. Eventually, like as a part of like growing up, it's like, oh, here's a stick of probably like Degree for men or something like that. Here's some deodorant. It wasn't like spray. It wasn't the freaking Axe body spray just to cover it up. No, it was like, here's some antiperspirant. Put it on in the morning before you leave. Then here's some stuff for maybe after you work out or whatever.
Well, the problem, you mentioned Axe in particular, just with anybody in there. During that time, obviously, we had no idea what using any product tastefully meant. So all we saw were a bunch of 6th grade boys lathering this crap up, like showering in Axe
Sixth grade
body
boys
spray.
are putting on Axe body spray as if it's hairspray for women, like from a like an 80s or 70s like movie or something.
The smells,
like clouds of the stuff.
and I think that's why I like that smell is just. It's such a negative connotation for me now, just because I was never. I remember, speaking of Axe,
I can't stand Axe now because of it.
I was the kid that walked in with Old Spice when I was in 6th grade, right? No, I'm an Old Spice guy now, and I feel like it fits my age more than it did when I was in 6th grade. Mm-hmm. But I don't know who they actually try to market to, if there's any particular market besides men, period. I figured not older men, but not like an 18-year-old guy. I pictured like...
it wasn't like an early like
millennials
teen or preteen sort of smell.
Yeah. But it was just a little bit more tame, obviously, compared to Axe. But I was that guy, and I remember somebody made a comment once, don't remember who it was, and that stuck with me because I was a 6th grader. Of course it stuck with me, and it's like, I'm not like everybody else. Why do I have the Old Spice? You know, is this weird? Whatever.
Well, it's funny because, and we weren't super close friends. We weren't friends like at all in 6th grade. I think it took a minute.
Yeah.
And I also had Old Spice stuff.
We should have been friends.
We should have been, but we weren't. Also, I didn't like you in middle school. Just period.
No one. Okay, you know what? Let me side note really quick. All of my best friends, literally, you, Hayden, those are the two big ones. But you two in particular, both hated me before you got close with me. He did too.
I had odd reasons for not liking you. Sure, you were the goofy, weird kid, and I was just myself. This is me. Doesn't have anything to do with you. I was a more uptight kid in middle school, so like already our personalities clashed a bit in middle school specifically. But then also, not even talking about your weird ear thing where you'd flick my freaking ears.
No, that was just mean. That was me.
That was you. But then even beyond that, in 6th grade specifically, you became really close friends with Logan, our friend Logan.
That's when we got close, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I was real close friends with him in 5th grade.
Oh, no.
And in 6th grade, I wasn't like as close to him anymore. Like I never got to hang out with him as much. And you like stole my friend. And I was so pissed about it.
Isn't it weird? And this is kind of a side tangent. I'm sorry. You and I can talk about anything.
We can.
First of all, I've apologized numerous times for the ear thing because that was blatantly just mean and literally bullying.
My ears
I literally bullied
in the gym
you
locker
in the gym locker room.
I mean, you say you bullied me. Physically, I had the prowess to stop you.
Yeah, you've always been taller than me. You could have done something.
In middle school, I was one of the bigger kids.
Yeah.
Not like fat or whatever. But like I just was taller. I was relatively bigger than most people. Like if I wanted it to stop, I could make it stop.
Right. but also, you were a nice guy. You didn't want to cause trouble. You were just pissed at me. And I took your friend away from you. Isn't that weird, too, how... Because then, by the way, the end of the story is nice because the three of us ended up being all close friends together.
We're all friends.
So it's funny how that works. But
yeah,
isn't it weird how friendships can, at that age, at least as my memories are in my head, they seem so real, but then like it's just for the summer. And then next year in 5th grade, you're best friends with somebody else. Like it for a lot of kids, I felt like it never stayed the same, at least at our small school that we went to. People are always interchanging
over the
friends.
summer, things would always kind of change for the new school year, and you never knew in what way until it got rolling, and you could never really pinpoint why like friendships would change a little bit, why I don't know, like well, and a lot of it too, especially like in elementary school, because people would be in different classrooms because you spent all day in a classroom. So you'd spend all day in one classroom with somebody, and then the next year maybe you're in a different classroom, so you never see that person. So a lot of stuff kind of like was in flux on a year by year basis.
Right.
Which actually makes me being jealous, basically jealous of you for having Logan's attentions. My friend Logan. Makes that kind of odd because like that shouldn't have been that unnatural up to that point, but for some reason it upset me at that time in 6th grade. But by the time we got to the 7th grade, I was kind of over that, right?
Right.
And again, like you said, we're all friends now, but there was something where like that stuff changed on a yearly basis. Who my friends were throughout elementary school, like you said, on a yearly basis did change.
Right.
And so it's funny that by the time 6th grade came around, like it annoyed me as much as it did. I don't know what it was specifically. I just do find it, especially since we're so close now, I do find it just hilarious that I remember a time in my history where no way, Jose, were we going to be friends.
I know. And it's bizarre because you and I kind of coasted until freshman year. Specifically, I recall we had English together. And I remember getting to know you a lot in English class. I don't know if you recall that, but I kind of consider that kind of the
in which
turning.
grade?
Freshman year.
Freshman year high school. That would have been with Ms. I guess I shouldn't dox her on.
I know who you're talking. Yeah.
On the podcast, but her, you know who I'm talking about.
We figured it out.
Alex has done me the justice of pausing the podcast so that we could confirm that we knew who we were talking about. I do want to say, before we go on with the podcast, I'm probably sounding different if you're used to the podcast. We are in Alex's studio. I'm on the road.
He's on the road.
I'm in Tennessee meeting Alex in person in his studio, far more professional than mine. And I just wanted to throw that out there, that this is the road episode of the podcast where I am on the road in person with somebody, with a guest. But we've been on the podcast before. Alex has been on the podcast before. Yep. I didn't mention that earlier. He's been on the podcast before, but it was remotely done. This is one that's in person using his equipment, far more professional than mine. I should say now in the sort of, not middle, but like early-ish section of the podcast that you should definitely check out Alex Duquette on YouTube.
Did you forget my last name for a second,
no.
Alex?
No, this is, you have to understand when you've lived with your last name all your life. Your last name is not easy for people.
No, it's not.
So I have to
lived with it all my
life. I have
life.
to give people a moment.
Yeah.
Alex Duquette, Duquette.
Yep.
Alex Duquette. On YouTube, if you get kind of close, YouTube will figure it out.
It will.
Does music, medleys, streams what he calls the jam and chats, where he jams and he chats. You want to know what more that means? Check it out for yourself. Give him a subscribe. It'd be a huge favor to me. You can also find him doing gaming stuff on Twitch, rarely at this moment, but occasionally if you're into the gaming thing. AP Duquette.
Great job,
over on Twitch. You can watch some of his gaming stuff, but where he really truly shines and does amazing work is over on YouTube at Alex Duquette.
What a great plug. Thank you. That was very sweet. And yeah, AP Duquette anywhere on social media too. You can follow me there. So I appreciate that. You're right. I've lived with this last name for a long time, and the butchering has never ended, and I swear it just gets worse. You would can only imagine the weird pronunciations that I've gotten. Right?
Oh yeah, Duquette.
Duquette is
Teddy.
Even though Duquette seems like it should be obviously not that, I understand why they would. There's a Q. Okay, fine. I'll give it to you. Okay. But I've gotten a Duquette.
Duquette.
Where did a Duquette come from? Where's the SCH?
Where does that happen?
If it was, how would you say it if it actually were that? D-O-O-S-C-H-E-T-T-E, Duquette?
I don't know. I truly don't.
I see an SCH in it, if it were to be that. But I don't know. Point is, I've gotten a lot of weird ones, but we go on a side tangent here. I'm happy.
That is a side tangent, but a necessary one because we are well into the podcast at the moment, and I feel like it is necessary to do some kind of plug at this point before we continue with your story about meeting an English class.
I'm glad you remembered that because he knows me. He knows I forgot.
We're gonna lose track if I don't say anything.
And I will remember it now. But I do want to say this too, since we're on this topic. Thank you for being here. You came down to visit.
I did. I came down to visit. We are in, like I said, Alex's home studio, and I come down. I had a extended weekend to spend down here with Alex, catching up. He's been asking me to come down and see the place for literally years now.
Yep.
And I have finally had the time to do so,
Yeah.
and I'm excited to do so. We've been seeing the area around the Memphis area is where we kind of hang out.
So you got to see the city, got to see the infamous Beale Street.
Yes.
You got to go to the Pyramid.
I did.
You went to Sun Studios, where all the greats have went.
That's right.
So we've done quite a few things.
Yeah, and we've listened to several different musicians play
Yep.
here and there. We've had some good food.
It's been a fun time.
We've done a lot of catching up, and I don't know,
It's been a lot of fun, and I really am glad to have you here, and you are welcome anytime, and I hope you know that. That being said, back to the matter at hand.
Yes, of course.
Freshman year, that seemed, for some reason, by the way, when we hit play, we had no idea we were going to go down this rabbit hole, but here we are.
Welcome to a Hasty Podcast. The entire thing's improv.
And I will say this too, it's funny. We could have hit record when you first got here at the beginning of this weekend.
Yes.
And there would have been plenty of stuff to put out there.
There was a lot of podcast-worthy discussions and talks, but we can't be recording every moment of every conversation. It's just not feasible.
And you know what? And that's okay, because some things I like that are just between you and me. You know,
Yes.
like,
in fact,
honestly.
just before this episode took place, we sat down to start our podcast, and instead we continued to talk about
important things.
more closely intimate private matters with one another for like literally an hour, like a podcast length
was
of an
literally another
episode,
podcast length.
which would have made a fantastic podcast if not for the fact that it was just really private information.
And by private information, it was about me. I have a rash on my back that I needed to talk about.
No. It was much deeper than that. It was much more emotional than that. It dealt with people and personalities and us and me and him, and it was very good. It would have made a fantastic podcast episode. I'm sorry you all missed out on that. You're going to have to pay for my OnlyFans to get that content. No, I'm just kidding.
I was about to make like a Patreon or something joke. Yeah.
Some kind of, you'll have to pay for the behind the scenes to hear that. No, we're kidding. Although if you do want to support the podcast, you can do so.
I knew that was coming. Go ahead, let it out.
Patreon.com/Weston Hasty, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get updates and a very special not behind the scenes so much as like its own separate short 10-minute podcast weekly called Weston Wednesdays over on patreon.com. I've actually missed a few episodes of that. I'll be honest. I mean, if I'm going to be plugging this, I'll be honest with you. I've missed a few episodes of Weston Wednesday. I need to get back onto that. I'm really bad about that. I'm bad about that. I'm bad about the podcast. I'm just a bad person.
You know, I think that's why we work so well, yin and yang, because I'm such a good person. So we connect, right? That's a joke.
Point is, that's where you can go to support the podcast.
Support the show.
With your money. If you don't want to support with your money, give me a rating and share the podcast with other people. That is actually far more important than anything else that you could possibly do. Alex is raising his hand like a student in a classroom. Yes, Alex?
I have a question. Was I your first Patreon supporter? Had to been close.
I think you might have been. I think you were. My first
and
Patreon
longest at this
supporter,
point.
I think you were. We had talked about, for the podcast, we can reveal our secrets about the Patreon. Okay. We had talked about at one point in time. There's no secrets. You're giving me a face.
Because I don't know what he's about to say.
No. It's not secrets. I'm being dramatic. We had talked about when we both opened our Patreons. about supporting one another so that we would both have like one Patreon,
Oh, yeah, we did.
patron each or whatever. We talked about doing that. And I told you that like, I had thought about that too, but I thought it was a bad idea because really at the end of the day, then we only have one patron each, which is each other, which doesn't really make that big a difference. And say we subscribe at the $5 level. Well, it's not like we're actually sending each other $5 because Patreon takes a portion of that.
Yeah,
so
you're
all we would be doing at that point, because we're not really supporting each other, because we're just sending that money back and forth to each other.
Right.
All we would be doing is paying Patreon for the privilege of doing so. So we didn't do that for the longest time.
Yeah.
We didn't support each other on Patreon, and then eventually at some point in time, I forget who pulled the trigger first. Someone supported the other.
It was me.
Anyway,
It was me because you launched, like, I wasn't doing it for a while. I dropped it for a while.
Because I couldn't remember. So it sounds like you supported me first on my Patreon that I did launch, and then when you did that,
when I came back,
I went ahead and supported you back anyway, because I mean, I do support the work that you do, and obviously it's the best way I have of just sending you your money back as best as I possibly can.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't have to do that.
Right.
So anyway, we support each other on Patreon because we're just cool cats like that.
We are cool cats like that. Before we talk about cats, let's go back to freshman year.
Yes, back to freshman year, English class.
So, for those of you who want to know the true story between Mo and Alex, here it is. This is the true story. And I mean, we're just kind of vaguely going through it because I really don't recall everything in detail. That was, 2008? So that would have been...
Freshman year would have been the 2008, 2009 year.
14 years ago, at least as of the recording of this podcast.
Yeah.
That is crazy, first of all, to think about. Okay.
That was a long time ago. We're old people. I just had a birthday. I'm an old man.
You're an old man. He's officially a senior citizen in 14 states.
I actually had a podcast episode that's been scrapped now where I talked about having a birthday. Didn't happen. I had a birthday recently, so I especially feel old, let alone this conversation right now that freshman year was that long ago.
I know. So it was freshman year when you and I think, really became friends. And I don't know if you recall this, but I remember we used to sit in... Our desks would be in clumps of 4. Do you remember this?
They were in the English classroom,
yes.
I remember there was I think
maybe three sections
of the room, and each section was roughly 4 rows by 4 columns. I think there was one section of the room that was smaller than that because of just the size of the room. I
do remember sections. I remember the clumps, but either way, it was divided into different groups, and you and I were in the same one. And I associate that time as getting to know you. That could be wrong, but that's in my head. My memory tells me that's when it started. We did a couple projects together. I know we did one in particular. We did I wrote a story or an essay. We had to do some sort of essay, and then you had to complement the essay with either some other form of art. You didn't you could do like a picture, like a painting, or you could do an audio thing. I chose to do the video thing because, of course. And you may not recall this at all, but it was me, you, and Logan, because Logan was in that class.
I don't remember the project. When you describe it, I hope I have an epiphany here.
So all 3 of us were in this class. It was Logan and I kind of spearheaded it, and then you were just kind of probably friends with Logan more at the time, and then you were just kind of getting to know me. And it was about the British invasion, in the 1960s, the music invasion from England, the Beatles, the Who, all these English groups that came to America and shook it up, right? That because Logan and I at the time were super into classic rock, that old music, and you were just kind of along for the ride, but you were a part of that group with us.
God, man, I really must have been just a part of the ride because this has left 0 impression on me.
I wonder if he remembers this, because I do. Because, also I'm the one...
I mean, that sounds right up your alley.
Right. I made the video, for God's sake. So that was my first attempt at a green screen. So in 2008, that was my first attempt. Did not go well, but I tried it. That's a whole nother bag of tricks. I just really perfected the chroma key just in the last 2 years.
That was a complicated skill when you were a freshman in high school
year
again, 2008, 2009, depending on what month
Yeah.
we're talking about.
I was
But
always
2008, basically.
Yeah, I was always trying to, like editing wise, try to push the bar the best I could. As technology advanced, I tried to keep up with it with the resources that I had as a
Which is
freshman.
funny because I'll be honest, the British invasion stuff, like I remember.
You remember any of that?
Vaguely that you had a thing with the British invasion. I don't even remember doing anything for that project. So I don't know what I did in that project. I don't remember doing anything for it.
Want me to tell you?
I'm sure I did. Like I probably wrote the thing.
You probably did. You were on a pogo stick. Does that ring a bell?
I remember being on a pogo stick for a video.
And then you said, "You'll regret this, Dennis." What it was? Okay, so
was
what?
that for the British? I remember being on a pogo stick for a video. Was that for the freaking?
So here's how it started. Yes,
Okay.
yes, this was it. This was it because I remember getting a good grade on it. We did another video project that you were not involved in, and I don't know if that came after or before, also in that class, because I always opted to do the video thing, right, when I had the opportunity. But you had to write a paper with it because it was English. So, but for this one, that started off, I think it was you and Logan. I really wasn't in it. I was just the guy who held the camera because that's what I loved to do. And I recorded you on a pogo stick. You're bouncing up and down with your little headphones in, whatever you're listening to. And then Logan's like, "Hey, what's going on, buddy?" And you're like, or no, he said, "Hey," yeah, I think it's, "Hey, what's going on?" And then you pull out one of your earbuds and you go, "I want to hold your hand." And then Logan's like, "Excuse me, what's going on?" He's like, "No, it's a song. It's by the Beatles. I want to hold your hand." And we had some joke about that, you know, because it was silly that you wanted to hold Logan's hand, of course. And but anyway, and then it turned into like Logan's like, "Oh, I don't listen to any of that garbage." And then you said, "Yeah, but if it weren't for this kind of music, you know, the British invasion was such a huge influence on American music, you know." And you go to this whole thing, and Logan's like, "I don't believe any of that crap." And then he started to walk away, and then you were like, "You'll regret this, Dennis," because his name was Dennis in the thing apparently. And then I don't know what happens after that. I think he like trips and falls, and he goes into this alternate universe, and then like he goes back in time.
You know, it's hilarious. I don't remember that English project whatsoever, but
Really?
I absolutely remember filming that because I also remember before we actually recorded my little spiel that I gave, we did a test run, and I gave some brilliant freaking speech that you loved. And you asked me to do that exact same speech over again, and I'm like, I don't remember a word that I said.
Which is common.
Because I improv literally everything that I do. So not a word of that was left in my memory. So we did it again, and I guess it was fine. But like
It's happened a few times.
I remember that outside my parents' driveway is where we filmed that on my pogo stick. I forgot that I owned a pogo stick. I used to have a pogo stick.
Yeah, so let's talk pogo stick for a second. Was this a common, like, was this a frequent use sort of situation, or did you just kind of have a pogo stick?
I don't remember why we had a pogo stick. At some point in time, I think my dad brought it home, had acquired a pogo stick. My brother and I we had a pogo stick, so we were going to learn how to use a pogo stick, and we knew how to pogo stick. I mean, there was nothing else to it. It was not a common thing. We didn't do crazy tricks or anything with it. We would just jump around on a pogo stick on occasion. I forgot we had a pogo. I don't know if my parents still have that somewhere, like in storage.
Yeah.
I do not know whatever happened to that pogo stick.
You should find out.
I should.
You really should, and then get it again.
I forgot that I used to pogo stick.
You pogo sticked. You did it hard. Because I remember, like, before we were filming this project, we all gave it a shot, and I could go for a second or two, he could go for a second or two, and then you could just...
Here I am, pogo sticking.
Just pogo sticking. Is it pogo sticking or pogoing? Do you just pogo?
It's got to be pogo sticking, right?
Are you sure? Because you're not sticking anything.
Well, I'm not pogoing.
But it's a stick for pogoing, right? It's the stick.
Because if I was pogoing, I'd be pogoing stick. That doesn't work, right?
I don't think either work. I think we can agree on that. I don't know what it is, but should we look it up?
Hey, Google. Pogo sticking. It's going to look that word up for me. Like, listen to this.
I'm going to look it up too, just in case. Hold on.
All I got was pogo stick. I did not get pogo sticking.
Should I type it? I just how to pogo stick. How would people say it?
Maybe I should try define pogo sticking and see if that actually even comes up with a result.
They say how to jump on a pogo stick. So like WikiHow says how to use a pogo stick. What's the verb? Here's one, how to pogo stick. Maybe you do pogo stick.
I do not see pogo sticking as a word, but I do see under people also ask what is meant by pogo sticking, which is a very bizarre question because I think we all know what is meant by what is pogo sticking.
I know what's meant by it.
Pogo sticking is when a search engine users visit several different search results in order to find a result that satisfies their search query. I feel like that is not pogo sticking.
That is incorrect.
I feel like the definition that I have been given by backlinko.com is not correct.
Yeah, that is incorrect. What is meant by I love meant.
For example, it says,
Okay.
For example, let's say you search for paleo diet in Google and you click on the first result, ... But it's not what you were looking for.
Ooh, link me this website.
That's the link. That's the example. For example.
Oh my gosh.
That's what it is. But it's not what you're looking for.
But it's not what you're looking for.
That's
These are not the
amazing.
pogo sticks you're
Anyway.
looking for.
That's backlinko.com.
Well, now we know. So
giving us the real scoop on what pogo sticking truly is.
we in other words, we don't have an answer.
I can tell you that apparently pogo sticking is a phrase that is used,
It's just, I guess.
just perhaps not in the way that we would all
Right.
imagine it to be used.
So we had that freshman year, and then at that point we became friends. Sophomore year and onwards, we were friends, and freshman year and onwards, we were always really close friends.
We were on the track to becoming friends in freshman year. High school is where our friendship started
Blossomed.
to happen.
Yes.
I don't know when you would say it blossomed. Exactly.
High school, for sure.
Like high school, but I don't know like what grade. I don't know when we actually got close. I don't remember having very many classes with you. I know we will get to the point where in MMJ, I had to think about the acronym for a second.
Yeah.
MMJ, multimedia journalism.
Which was the second half of our career in high school.
And I took that junior and senior year
Same.
because it was a repeatable credit. So I know we were by then. I don't know for sure when we actually became like officially friends.
I know before that for sure because we were already close friends by Caesar, and that was sophomore year.
And Julius Caesar, which was we filmed and recorded a video version of the story of Julius Caesar as if we were all Caesarean.
I like Caesarean. Stick with that.
Caesar actors, but like in modern times.
Modern day.
Like the rest of the world is current times, but all of these people in our video aren't.
Right.
It was a very strange premise, but like once you got sucked into the video, it really didn't matter.
Right. And something that I'm still, at least as a director at that age, very proud of to this day, and we all really enjoy it. It's, in fact, little side tangent, I don't know in recent years, but for a long time, well over 5-6 years after we graduated high school, that was the example that another English teacher, not the same one that graded that video.
Yes.
But she showed that as an example of what you can do when you make your Julius Caesar video. Here's an example of how you can get creative, which is something to be proud of. That was cool. She did cut out a couple parts because I liked to, as a director, push the bar.
Edgy.
Well, I mean, we were all edgy, but we like to push the bar a little bit.
We had the word whore.
We put whore
in the script
and piss.
And which scene had the word piss?
You know what's pissing me off? It was and then you said, "You're the one with the itching palm." And then he goes to it. We also set this up with talking heads like The Office.
Like The Office. There was an Office-style talking head segment for several characters throughout the entire thing.
Right. So there's a part where the character Brutus, who was actually Logan of all people.
Yes.
Who we just mentioned earlier, yelled at who yelled at who?
Well, no, Brutus was yelling at Cassius, which was me.
Right. And he said, "You're the one with the itching palm. What are you talking about? Then you get all mad back at him, and then it cuts to a talking head, and he goes, "Gold bond does not work."
Gold bond does not work. That was my line.
because
I had an itchy palm.
Yeah, an itchy palm. Stupid jokes like that.
Which was funny because, like, honestly, that joke is so far ahead. Like, no one in our class, no one uses gold bond,
Right.
unless you're old.
Right.
We're all, 17 or 16 or whatever it is.
It was
sophomore year, 16-ish.
Not just that joke, but quite a few jokes, and then the overall project itself was very ambitious for our resources and for what we just for our resources and just the time that we had. I mean, for a bunch of 15/16-year-olds, we spent a month. It was 4 weeks shooting this video.
Julius Caesar had of all the videos you had ever shot, which I knew you filmed videos. I didn't.
Right.
But I wrote the script for Julius Caesar.
Yeah, you were always on set, making sure that we were on track to follow pretty closely with the story, because I did want
I was like
accuracy with
I was
that.
our script writer, which again it was a collaborative effort on the script,
Right.
so it's not like it was just me. It was a collaborative effort, but I helped actually do the physical writing of the script, and then I was like the consultant to make sure it actually followed the source material.
Which I'm proud of, because maybe that's why it's an example used for students still. Because, it gets really goofy and weird, and we get a little edgy in certain parts, but...
Because I was the one that actually read the Shakespearean play and understood it best, because
Right.
I was just the nerd kid
were
that understood the Shakespeare version better than anybody.
Right. And at the time, it's funny, because now I would appreciate it so much more. At the time, I didn't care about that crap. I wanted to make a video and make it funny and make it good,
Yeah,
right?
and
That's what I wanted
okay,
to do.
I love your idea, Alex, but we need to, get it more Shakespeare.
But that's why I think it ended up working
It did.
really well. So... there's a lot of funny parts that wouldn't even be funny unless you saw it, and
That was such a... So, Julius Caesar, the film project that we did for an English class in our sophomore year, we were becoming friends before then.
Yeah.
But that was such... Because I was so heavily involved with the script writing and the consulting with that, and you were so heavily involved with the directing and producing of the actual video itself, that we were both so heavily involved with this one singular project. That was a huge spearhead in us becoming close friends, I think.
that had to have been, if it didn't already happen, that had to have been the nail in the coffin, in a good way.
That must have been the knife in the Caesar.
The knife in the Caesar, exactly.
We gave Julius Caesar a really just random, high-pitched voice. Our buddy Justin.
Well, because the idea was, this was Caesar himself, right? He well respected, right? He's
powerful
man, and then and also our friend Justin. he was just a bigger
really
boned
big guy.
So we thought, this is perfect. He's gonna approach you, and the next thing he does goes, I killed Pompey with this stick. He always had a high voice. That was his first line in the whole thing.
Yeah, that was his first line, famous line, because Julius Caesar in the play has just killed Pompey in a war, in a battle. But in our story, he's killed him with specifically
just one
a stick. I just killed Pompey with this stick.
That was so great. But when we talk about the actual killing part, I love the... I can't remember the context now of the actual story, but the part where they kill... Because what happens right after they kill Caesar in the story? Remember, because we did the blood joke.
Yeah, obviously the joke where we all drink Caesar's blood because it's made out of Jello and Kool-Aid.
Because what happens in the story? There's a reason why we made that
in
joke.
The real play, obviously. No, I think that was an ad-lib joke added. I think that had nothing to do with the original play. I don't remember. It's been a while since I read Julius Caesar, I'll be honest.
I remember the joke now. So the joke, that must have been just a complete thing that we added.
Yeah.
So they kill Caesar, and then what happens is, it was our other good friend, Nick, was his name. Well, his name.
Nick was the one. Should we eat it or whatever it was he said?
Well, no, he said, do you guys want to play in it?
Yeah, that's
what he said.
Do you want to play in it?
And what I loved that we did is that wasn't the joke. The joke was then going to Brutus talking about a talking head going, I really appreciated how much we respected Caesar in this killing. It had to be done, but we truly believe that we did this in the most respectful way possible. Yeah, and then while he's saying that, they're just playing in blood.
Yeah, Brutus is talking about how necessary it was that Julius Caesar falls. I don't know how many of you listening to this have read the Julius Caesar play by William Shakespeare. I do not know, but the point is, Brutus is Caesar's friend, but
Yep.
Brutus is a part of a conspiracy to kill Caesar.
Yep.
Because it's for the betterment of Rome.
Right.
Even though they're friends, Brutus basically gives up that friendship for the betterment of Rome. That's
Right.
the original William Shakespeare story. It's tragic. And so, like, in our rendition, Brutus is very torn up about this,
Right.
and like, this is for the betterment of Rome and that kind of thing. Meanwhile, the rest of us involved in the conspiracy plot that isn't Brutus don't care. We're like playing in Julius Caesar's blood,
Right.
and like
all the while he's talking about, this is very
again,
had
the
to be
blood
done.
is all like Jello and Kool-Aid, so it's not that morbid.
We discovered how to really. We had some good blood stuff though, just a little bit, but we used just watered down Kool-Aid mix.
Basically,
it was thick and
lighter
dark.
color than blood would be, which
It was still
was
dark
helpful.
though.
It wasn't like super. It wasn't a gory look. It was
Well-
just like, oh, it's red.
Well, if you recall, you may not recall this. This might
We
have
tried
been
a
more.
few recipes to try to get the blood red.
Okay.
The blood right. We tried a few recipes.
I'm glad you remember that because I didn't know if this is more just on the director's side or not, but I'm glad you remember because here's what it was. We did two different ones. We did strawberry, but strawberry wasn't dark enough, so
Right.
we switched to cherry, and cherry mix did it. Cherry mix was just darker.
It was a better coloring.
It was just better coloring, and obviously real blood would be. I mean, it's even darker than that, and there wasn't gore. It was just, but it worked a lot better, and it was our best attempt at blood that that I've personally done since even. But yeah, it was a really super fun project, and that is certainly that was the first time that you and I really worked together creatively,
Yes.
and
Especially extensively, because that was like the largest project you had ever worked on.
right.
That was like the first major project at all that I had worked on. You mentioned the freshman project, but I played like a
Right.
bit piece in
Yeah.
that. That was the first project I was like remotely involved in being in any kind of capacity a leader or in charge of
Right.
at all.
And one of my favorite things about you too, because you not only were a big part of the writing and just making sure everything was on track. In fact, if we were to give you an actual title for that, you would have been the line producer is what your name would have been. You would have been, which is basically making sure everything is going the way it needs to go, moment to moment. That's what you did.
That's what I was doing.
You were the
yes.
line producer / writer. And so, which I'm glad you were, because my head was in the clouds through a lot of that. But I lost my train of thought. What
That's
were you
okay.
saying?
This is an excellent time for a break.
Yeah, perfect. I'll regain my thoughts.
Welcome back from the break. Today we're drinking. This is not what Alex was prepared to talk
No,
about.
I was literally about to open my mouth, and then he said, "Welcome back."
Welcome back after the break. We're drinking. Is this called Puffle, or is that just the marketing?
I believe Puffle's the name. It's actually Wiseacre. Shout out to Wiseacre, local
I
to
see.
Memphis.
Yeah, Wiseacre Brewing Co., Memphis, Tennessee. We were drinking local tonight.
Yep.
I mentioned last time in the podcast that we were going to talk about what I was drinking for the podcast because I thought it was a fun segue. Although it's normally coffee, black coffee,
Yes,
black
I know
roast
that.
coffee.
Yep.
It normally is, but when it's not, it's like, what are we drinking? So today we're drinking Wiseacre Brewing Co., Memphis, Tennessee. This is called Puffle Hazy Double Juicy IPA, brewed with Nelson Sauvin, Sintra, and Mosaic hops. 16 ounce. It's a particularly potent IPA, India Pale Ale. It's quite delicious, actually. That's what we are
Really
drinking
yummy.
tonight. We both are. Delicious ale, refilled on it because we're continuing this episode.
And beer is yummy.
It is.
I like
And
beer.
It's the evening. It's not a morning episode for me as we record this.
Right.
So that's what we are doing tonight. I recommend it. It's quite tasty. If you have if you have an opportunity, I couldn't think of the word opportunity.
Yeah,
for
if you've ever in
you
the
have an
Memphis area.
opportunity,
It
it is a local brew in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. Quite tasty IPA.
That's one thing that I didn't do a lot with you.
Not sponsored, obviously. We talked about this last time where I'm clearly not.
Right. But I'm sure they would appreciate it either way. No, I will say that that's one thing that we didn't do that maybe we'll do next time we come down to town is Memphis, like per capita, has a lot of breweries, and we went to none. So
We didn't.
So next time I maybe take you to a few of those because they all have tours and fun things. Because there's a ton of breweries here. For some reason, there's just a bunch in the
For what
city.
we've been doing all weekend, we just did not have the time to hit nearly as many. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Memphis.
Right.
There's so many things to see, and it takes
Right.
so much time. And the things that we wanted to do, we did not have the time to see everything.
Right.
There's no way.
Next time, I wanted to show them the most important things, which were the music, because that's what Memphis is most notably known for. So anyway, but either
That's
way,
what we've been drinking. Share with me what you've been drinking. Anywhere you can leave a comment. You can use the hashtag Hasty Podcast.
yes.
On Twitter, specifically, you can @ me if you feel like it will get my attention, and it will, with @Weston Hasty. That is my Twitter, @Weston Hasty. Use the hashtag Hasty Podcast. Let me know what you've been drinking listening to the podcast. Have you not been drinking? Well, let me know what your favorite beverage is, especially if it's from Tennessee.
Yeah,
as
let us know.
today's episode is more Tennessee-centric.
Think about it. Tennessee, I mean, it's got a bunch of distilleries. The Jack Daniels distillery is in Tennessee. Tennessee whiskey. I mean, that's the whole thing. Tennessee whiskey.
That's the whole thing. Let me know what your favorite drink is. If you are one of my YouTube viewers, perhaps a little on the under of the age variety, let me know what your favorite virgin drink is. Perhaps you're a milk fan. Perhaps you're a Dr. Pepper fan.
Perhaps
Let
you're
me
a
know
milk fan.
because I drink a lot of other things that aren't booze as well.
Could I have a virgin milk, please? Someone asked for that.
You know, often that's just called milk.
Yeah, we just call that milk. Yeah, that's okay. Did you know that if you go to the Jack Daniels, like the main facility, that's somewhere in Middle Tennessee, that you can actually buy a plot of land and own it? Like you can buy a plot of their acreage, which is huge.
Really?
And you can own it. Yeah, I don't know how much it costs, but there's so many people that do it, but you can legally own a piece of their land.
That's like there's a website where you can buy a piece of like Scottish land.
Okay.
You've probably seen these ads. Maybe you haven't. I get them all the time. Where
Yeah.
you can get the whole premise of this website is that you can buy a piece of Scottish land on this estate or something like that. And when you
Okay.
own land in Scotland, technically you're a lord.
Okay.
So
yes,
technically, you can be sent like the certificate, and you can like claim to be Lord whatever your name is. So if I did, I could be Lord Hasty because I am a Scottish lord because technically I own land, and it's literally you buy like a square foot of land on an estate in Scotland, and that's their whole premise. I don't remember what the name of the website is. It's like scotlandtitles.com or something like that. If you Google this, you will find it because it's really actually popular, oddly enough. And there's ads for it on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. It's everywhere. And I saw a ton of them for a long time. That's where I got it. So that's what I was thinking of when you mentioned the Jack Daniels. You can buy a plot of land in Jack Daniels. I'm like, is it anything like the Scotland website where you can become a Scottish lord?
I mean, you're not a lord. You're just a guy who really likes whiskey, I guess. but then again, it is Scotland. Is there any, we all know the Irish stereotype. I think we can both safely say this being Irish blood.
Irish blood. There is Irish blood.
The alcohol stereotype. Is that
I don't know what you're talking about. We're not.
Yeah, what are you
drinking
talking about? What are you talking
Full
about?
hazy double juicy IPA.
Yeah, what are you talking about, right? Does that bleed into Scotland at all?
I mean,
Do you know?
Like-
just offhand, I don't know.
I'm going to say Scotland's not that far from Ireland.
I think they're close.
Obviously, they're not the same culture.
No, they're not the same culture.
They're
no.
not the same culture.
But they're
I'm
pretty.
going to say they're not far because
Yeah.
I'm from the United States, and like our states get pretty big.
Yeah.
So like,
Yes.
I'm going to say they're not very far. Someone on the other side of the pond is going to say, "Oh my God, we're so different." XYZ. It's like
Right,
I'm
what
from
are
the
you talking
United
about?
States.
Yeah.
You have to understand that it's really not that significant to me. But anyway. Yes, they're different cultures. We both have, I know I have anyway, I have Scottish and Irish blood in me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Same.
it's not like, what was the point you were trying to make, though?
Does the alcohol stereotype
Oh,
bleed into Scotland?
I don't think so.
Probably not. I don't
I
know.
don't-
I was just asking. I really don't know.
Obviously, like in, I forgot what we were trying to say, but like, yeah, no, the Irish alcohol stereotype, I think, comes from specifically St. Patrick's Day, which is a really famous drinking holiday, right? Where everyone goes out to bars and gets drunk and whatever.
Right.
I don't know that Scotland has the same reputation, at least with Americans, with the people from the United States. I don't want to sound insensitive to anyone from across the pond that would clearly know this better than I do.
We don't claim to necessarily know, so don't,
I just know that in America, obviously we have St. Patrick's Day, and that's a huge drinking holiday here, but we don't have a Scottish holiday. So I don't have an association with Scots being as like drunkard as like Irish people.
Right.
And this is coming from with love, as someone who
Sure.
does have Irish and Scottish. I'm kind of a mutt. I have Irish and Scottish and German and a little bit of English, tiny bit of English blood in me. I've a mutt of like European blood as well as American, just all kinds of stuff going on there. So like I'm not that close to the Irish or Scottish, like I don't have like really Irish or really Scottish traditions, so to speak.
Right.
But I know that blood is in me, but I don't know of any like Scottish stereotypes for alcohol specifically.
I think a lot of times, and this is just maybe because you don't have the full perspective unless you live there. And once again, we're both in America. But I think it is fairly common here. If Americans were to get on the topic of accents, and somebody brings up Irish accents, someone's going to bring up a Scottish accent too.
Which are different,
but to an American, they sound very similar. They do. There's a lot of similarities.
I guess so, yeah.
Yes.
Like, part of me wants to say no, but then I'm like, well, no, actually,
they're similar.
The average American,
yeah.
Yes.
I think so. I would say so.
They are different. I'm going to put that out there because I know I know that I can differentiate. That is an SAT word right there. Differentiate. D-I-F-F-E-R. God, different E-N-T-I-A.
S-O-N-G song.
Differentiate. Anyway, I can differentiate between an
actually.
Irish and a Scottish accent, but I know for the average American that maybe isn't this case.
I actually find the Scottish accent, it's very pleasing to the ear.
I love a Scottish accent.
I love it.
I actually I talk to Wiley, my brother, about this sometimes. We talk about accents rarely, so this isn't like a common thing, but we were talking about accents at one point in time. And I have this thing where it's like a chip on my shoulder for some reason, because people in my life have been attracted to French accents in the French language, and that does nothing for me. I think it's a kind of a gross sounding language. I have nothing against the French people.
Easy.
I have nothing against the French language.
That 0.0001% demographic.
I'm going to put that out there right now. I'm not calling you out for anything bad.
Also, I have a lot of French in me, man. Come on, easy.
You have a lot of French.
More than
Duquette.
Yeah,
you have French.
More than Irish.
So I am coming out as saying basically that French, which is a very romanticized accent and language in the United States, where it's like that's Paris, the city of love.
Yeah.
I just think the accent is kind of gross. I like just personally, nothing is against the French people or the language. The accent does not strike romance in my brain. It just doesn't do it. Scottish? Oh my God. I love a Scottish accent.
Oh yeah.
A genuine Scottish accent sounds so attractive to me. It's not
Me too, yes.
It's so engrossing. Yeah. And again, part of it is the exotic factor. You don't hear it a lot. So it's the exotic factor. But Scottish?
Yeah.
So much more.
It really is. I actually haven't heard enough French of the French language to make a decision on that. So I can't speak to that, I'll be honest. But I have heard a lot of Scottish accent. In fact, I fell in love with it when I watched, this was over a decade ago. I fell in love with the accent from a man who spoke with the Scottish accent. A man who, and I do say this as a straight male, but I found it attractive. I really did find it attractive. Man,
it's an attractive accent.
And it's a very attractive accent. It was from the movie called Leap Year. It was
I remember that
chick
movie
flick.
coming out. I never saw it.
Chick flick. I don't know if it actually holds up. Probably it's fine. It's just a cute little chick flick. It's this girl and she gets I think she's from America. I think that's the whole point. And then she gets stuck in Scotland, and she's somehow stuck with this guy who's from Scotland, right? And then they end up falling in love, right? Of course, right? But I'm pretty sure he was a real Scottish man, and but that accent. It's just such an awesome accent. I really
I get it, even from a guy. It is an attractive accent.
And attractive can mean many things. Like at first it piqued my interest. Like, I want to know more about you, just because of how you sound.
It's an appeal. I guess, like, perhaps even better than the word attractive, which comes with its own connotations. Just, it's an appealing accent for some reason to me. And I'm guessing it's the same way with you, where it's just, regardless of who's speaking it, it's like, oh, you have my attention suddenly. Right. No matter, it doesn't even matter what you're talking about. It's like, oh.
Right. Ooh, you talking to me?
Oh,
me?
Not even talking to me. It's like, you're talking?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You're making noise.
Mm-hmm. I would like it if you continue to talk.
Right. Everybody get quiet.
Continue.
Let's listen. Please go. Were you ever told growing up, mind your P's and Q's?
No, never.
Do you know the phrase?
I've heard it, yes.
Okay. So I was told this quite a bit. And I remember hearing it in school a little bit, and we talked about going to the same school earlier. Do you know what that stands for and then where it comes from?
Stands? I don't know what you mean by stands for. I get that, linguistically speaking, mind the way you write.
P's and Q's stand for something. The original, like the origin of P's and Q's.
I want to hear your side of this because maybe I don't know it.
So, I will give a quick hint. It has to do with what we just talked about, moments ago.
Apparently Scots?
Not Scots. It was right prior to that.
The Irish?
The Irish.
Okay. The Irish.
The Irish. So
that was a terrible accent, but they don't.
Yeah, you said the Irish. You said
the Irish. Anyway, Irish, I can't do an Irish. I have Irish blood in me, but I'm a disgrace to my blood. Anyway, continue.
We both are. Don't worry. But no. So mind your P's and Q's was originally an Irish saying, and it was because when I was told mind your P's and Q's, it was be on your best behavior. That was the context it was used in. Be on your best behavior. Okay. And not just me with my parents. I got it from teachers in grade school. Mind your P's and Q's, and I just kind of knew what it meant. A few times. Anyway, it's an Irish thing, and it stands for mind your pints and quarts. Don't get in a fight at the bar.
Is that a thing?
Don't get rough. Mind your pints and your quarts. It's in terms of, booze, basically.
I've never heard that. That's fascinating.
Yeah, mind your pints and quarts.
My interpretation of P's and Q's is wildly different.
I want to hear it.
No, it's not a fun story or anything. It's just literally P's and Q's are very similar letters. Just the line is on the different side. So mind your P's and Q's in the sense that, it doesn't take much to be a wildly different letter, basically. Linguistically speaking.
Interesting.
Right. Because when you write your P and your Q
I get it.
And I don't know what I can't think of. I don't know if I know the word for the font style of writing where you just straight line, no like little, the little caret that you put at the end of the tail of a P or a Q. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? At the bottom where you kind of slant left or slant right.
Yeah.
So where it's just a straight line. So your P's and Q's, right, is a circle and then a line down. The difference between a P and a Q is where the line is, the right side or the left side of the circle.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense in terms of audio to everyone listening to this. You have a circle on the horizon of the line of what you're writing with the circle.
Yep.
What differentiates a P and a Q is where is that vertical line, right side or left side. So mind your P's and Q's. They are very similar, but whichever one you choose is wildly different. So it's a very different kind of metaphor where it's you have to be conscious of what you're doing. That's where I come from. What you've said sounds way more culturally fun.
Right.
Whereas mine's just more linguistically, like mind your P's and Q's. They look similar.
Completely
if you're not
different,
careful.
yeah.
Yeah, completely different. I don't know where my interpretation comes from. I don't know where I learned that. But yours is really fun. Pints
Right.
and quarts?
Pints and
That
quarts.
sounds really cultural. That sounds really fun. I don't
Right,
know
it
how
makes
true
sense.
it is. I haven't
Right.
looked it up, obviously, but that sounds really fun.
Well,
Pints and quarts.
contextually speaking, it makes sense, at least in terms of the context that it was always used in for me, because you never heard it, so it's different.
I've
right?
never heard this.
Me, alongside others, which I'm surprised because I heard teachers say this. Okay,
Really?
kids, mind your P's and Q's. They usually meant it to my memory as, okay, that's mind your P's and Q's, be quiet, right? Don't get loud, don't get rambunctious. Mind your P's and Q's. And I never knew what it meant, but I thought it was just be quiet. And I think maybe as a kid I thought the Q meant quiet or something. Not that mind your
That's
quiet
really
would make
interesting
sense.
because the only time I feel like I remember mind your P's and Q's, dot your I's and cross your T's. That's where I've heard this stuff is all
Interesting.
related to literally handwriting.
Well, I mean, that kind of fits with you,
Yeah, it does.
the English guy. So
my studies in English and writing and that kind of thing.
it makes sense.
But
it
yours
checks
is
out.
more interesting.
And it could be true.
Mine just sounds bland and plain. Like just mind which way you
You got to
write.
spice it up. You got to spice
Like
it
don't
up.
write like a stupid bird. Like be literate.
Right.
my example of growing up is that be literate. Your example is mind how you behave.
Right. This is all fitting to who we are as people, Weston. I mean, like our definitions. No, I'm just kidding. Remember what I was talking about like a long time ago now? Because I do.
How long ago? In the podcast or like?
Or do you remember what I said?
Remember what I said a long time ago.
Do you remember what I
I'm like,
said?
that's a very wide range.
Do you remember what I said October 11th, 2012? Do you remember what I said that day?
October 11th, 2012. It was probably something along the lines of like farts.
That could have been. That could have been any time. Any time. I mean, literally any time. Like today, I could have been. We talked about farts today.
No, what are you talking about?
What I am talking about is I was going our little trajectory, our friendship trajectory, and I wanted to mention we kind of stepped away, but I do want to circle back because I want to give you a shout out.
Oh, give me a shout out on my podcast.
When we were talking about, I want to give you a shout out to your dedication, to the craft of video making. Okay. When we did Caesar, we're going back to this for a quick second.
Yes.
We dropped this after the break. I wanted to still thank you for this because I really think it played a big role. There's a scene in which your character commits suicide, or technically you had your squire kill you.
Yes.
I think is what the technical thing
because
was.
Cassius in the Julius Caesar story had. Well, I think no. Brutus has his slave stab him.
You do
Cassius
too.
takes his own life. I believe.
Maybe, but
it's been a while since I've read the story. Go on though.
We didn't do that at least because I remember the whole thing of like, will you hold my sword as I thrust upon it, or we worded it something like that.
That's right. You're right.
And then it was your brother who played that character. Because then afterwards, remember when you died, he like took the
That's right.
the blade and he licked the blood for some reason. He went, I never liked that guy anyway. Whatever.
You're right. I needed you to remind me of how the story goes. Yes, Cassius has his. I think in the original Julius Caesar story, it's like his slave or his servant or whatever they call him in the play. Basically hold Cassius's sword out so that
Right.
Cassius can thrust himself upon it.
I remember the part, and I'll go to the part I was going to thank you for and give you a shout out for in just a second, but I love at the very end of it when he's like, I don't really care. I never liked the guy. I mean, I was a slave, for God's sake.
Yes, that's right.
He's like, I never liked him. I don't care that he's dead.
So in our rendition of the play, we make it a little bit more lighthearted in the sense that Cassius does the whole like thrust himself upon his own sword held by his own servant and dies. But then like the servant, which is played by my brother, like I didn't really care for the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he literally enslaved me.
He enslaved me. Like, I mean, he was being kind of moody, and I was like, all right, sure, yeah, I'll basically kill you. Yeah, whatever.
But what I wanted to thank you for and give you a shout out for was, once again, everybody, we got to be in the context of this, right? This is something that was unprecedented. I did not think Weston would have done this. I'm sure that I asked you, but I'm sure that I did. But I was kind of already expecting, if I were to imagine, I would have been expecting a no, because I would have been fine with it, because that is you shouldn't have to do that. So we recorded this particular scene out at my parents' property. They lived in the country, and they had a little creek near the house. And during the scene, this was all just truly a kind of a spur of the moment cinematic decision. But I asked Weston to do this, and he agreed. Which was we did it near the creek, near the water, and instead of just falling to your death, you fell into the water and floated off to your death, right?
Yeah, into a creek. I fell,
The only caveat that you had was, I don't want to use because we were using bed sheets as togas. I remember this part. You said, I'd rather not use mine. Do you have any old sheets that you're willing to let me use?
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Whatever. I just gave you my bed sheets because I wanted it to be done. So they weren't old. They were just bed sheets. Because I can wash them, whatever.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. You just gave me sheets.
They were my main bed sheets.
Oh, my God.
So, or at least one of them. I had a few pair, obviously.
I'm sure you washed them and they were fine. But
yeah, it was totally fine. Yeah, I didn't care, but I also respected that decision. I thought, he's willing to do it. I will do this. So I got my clean pair of sheets, which were just a dark blue pair.
Just as context for everyone, we were all wearing togas.
Yeah.
All of the cast members were wearing togas made out of bed sheets that were generally borrowed from our parents. They were like bed sheets that we borrowed from our own home. But at the time, I was wearing bed sheets as a toga.
We were all wearing our own sheets,
that
basically.
belonged to like my mom, basically. So my caveat was that this belongs to my mom. She doesn't want it ruined, that kind of thing.
Dirty creek water. Yeah, I get it.
So I was asked, would I, when I'm dead, fall into this creek?
Right.
In this scene. The scene is that I fall into my sword at the edge of this creek. I'll fall backwards into this creek.
Yeah. And it's funny.
My only caveat was that I just didn't want to use my sheets for my toga.
I don't really remember I don't remember the whole conversation. I remember the asking part, but I'm sure that in the back of my head that I was thinking he's going to say no, and it's okay. He's going to say no, but I'm going to ask. So I'm sure that I was surprised when you're like, yes, but I'd rather use like another old pair of sheets that we don't mind to get dirty or whatever. But anyway, you did it.
I did. I fell into a creek and back floated down the creek for a little ways.
You did it. You did it. We got a scene of you actually falling into the water. We did some more blood work then when you thrust yourself upon the sword. We had a little clip of the blood hitting the stone near the water and stuff. And that was a good scene. I like that scene.
I still regret in this scene, just in terms of my acting, the water was cold. Really cold. So there was a part where if you're watching carefully, you can tell that I'm like holding my head up a little bit above the water.
You've said that before. I've never noticed.
If you're looking for it, you'll see it where I'm kind of holding my head up. And I wish I had committed to just screw it. I know the water's cold. I need to actually like immerse that part of my head into the water. I really wish I watching it back, I wish I had.
Well, and you would have now.
I would have.
You would have now.
But the point you're making is that you didn't even expect me to.
I did not expect you to do it
at all, let alone as much as I did.
And you know how much I give you props for that a lot when we talk about this. Almost every time we talk about it, because it is I'm very proud of you for doing that, because you didn't have to. Right. You really didn't, and I wouldn't have been upset. I just would have. Okay, you'll fall, and that's it. We would have left the creek and gone somewhere else.
And that's honestly like. As much as this story has played a part in this podcast episode, you have to understand, listening to this podcast, this was a huge influence into what would become me being interested in creating video content myself. Yeah. My commitment to this was 100%. Again, like I had the sheets issue where it's like, can we find a different pair of sheets for me to wear? Because, what I was wearing belonged to my mom. I didn't.
Yeah.
We were teenagers. We were in high school. I could not screw up my mom's sheets. So but my commitment, my end of it was that I am committed to this. I am committed to this video.
Yeah.
We have developed and produced and directed and written this video project. I am committed. And this was the beginning of what would become my interest in video making myself. In a wildly different way than we were doing at the time, but
right. I'm happy to, and I by no means take full responsibility. However, I am happy to have very easily and accessibly brought you in to that universe in some ways because I remember
in many ways
because you became my friend, and then it was, hey, you want to be in a video? Because that's what I did. In my spare time, yes. I made videos, right? And you did. And you were in quite a few of those, including that one, of course. And I'm so happy that it's kind of interesting how that trajectory worked because here we are, both of us still making videos.
Making videos in a little bit different. Of a way than that was. But
right.
Making videos, making content, using our creative muscles to create, for lack of a better word, content.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, is a really lackluster way of saying creating pieces of entertainment media.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's probably even a better way to say it than that.
Sure.
But the point is that what we want to create kind of starts, at least on my story, on my end of it. I know Alex's story begins really, truthfully, far before that, creating videos far before this project. But my involvement in it, since we're on my podcast, my involvement began right around a Julius Caesar English project, making this video, making these decisions, making these commitments.
It was your first time, I would presume, being involved in more than just being behind the camera or being in front of the camera too, because I did direct the thing, but you were hugely involved in moment to moment. You kept us on track. You were, like I said before, you were the line producer. So you were making sure that we were on track. We were keeping to script, right? Everybody was doing their part. I recall this, right? And you would speak up I remember I don't recall specific times, but I do remember you saying, wait, we need to make sure, because we would fall off track. I'd start to get my head in the clouds again and just make a stupid joke without having any
continuity.
Continuity.
I remember having to make the call where sometimes it's like, hold on, we had just done this in the previous scene, or this is the story with Julius Caesar.
In a way, this was really a joint effort in a lot of ways between you and me, because nobody else in the cast really were involved behind the scenes besides, in terms of that side of it, the writing / directing side besides you. We had wardrobe people, which were also the actors, but we had it just so happened to be the ladies of the podcast. They would help us all put our stuff on and everything. That was so much fun. Those were fun times. But yeah, I mean that is. I'm happy to hear that was a defining moment for you. I never knew that. You've never really flat out said that before.
Not flat out. We've talked a lot privately about my influences into becoming a content creator in my life, let alone on YouTube, just in general, my interest in doing so, especially on the gaming side of things. I do a lot of Let's Plays, I do a lot of streaming. That lends itself to a lot of other influences, for sure. Other people that I've watched on YouTube that I've been influenced by, for sure. But even as early in high school, talking about the early video content that we did, creating... I don't want to say sketch, because that's not what we were doing at that time, but creating some kind of movie project.
The short films, you can say that. As early
as high school was my introduction and foray into produced creative content to be shared with others. My experience with creating video content doesn't begin really until then. Not really. I like you were mentioning with that sophomore year project with the pogo stick, I wasn't really a part of creating the video aspect of that.
Right.
My heavy involvement with creating the video process, being a part of the creative process of a video project, didn't really start until the Julius Caesar interpretation video project of an English class in sophomore year. I hope that sentence made sense, because I don't know how else to describe it. My heavy involvement in a project like that didn't start until really then.
Yeah.
My pogo stick thing in sophomore year that you were mentioning earlier, that was a bit part that I played in a project that I probably didn't care that much about.
Sure.
That maybe was your introduction into involving me in these types of things.
Yep.
Perhaps. But I didn't care nearly about, I did not care nearly about that as much as I did about this Julius Caesar thing.
Right.
So that was a huge influence into what would become eventually, not at the time, but later when I started involving myself in my own video projects, that was a huge influence in my experience in how to direct myself in projects like that.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
So that was a huge influence in what I do, even though what I do now today is mostly video game content and like this podcast, for example.
But, you might say that if it weren't for those early instances and those early moments of being exposed to it, who knows, right? Like, and I feel the same way with my trajectory. If it weren't for my father pulling out the home video camera and making his kids do funny things for the camera, because he would do these short little videos, I don't think I would have ever been into it. So I thank my father for that. You were exposed to a different, because we were talking about internet earlier, right? You lived. We're both from a small town, but you're specifically from a different town that's like
I'm from
even smaller.
I think we were talking about this in private. We were not talking about this on the podcast. In private, we were talking about how I'm from a small village in Illinois.
A literal village.
Literally a village, less than 100 people.
Right. That's defined as a village. Yeah.
My family had access to dial-up internet that we rarely used for specifically research for school projects.
Right.
I had
when
no
you had
access,
to use it.
I had no access reliably to the internet as you understand it today, which really even at that time was not the internet you understand it to be today, until 2009.
Which 2009 was, that was already pretty far into the internet.
2009 was my earliest adoption of the internet.
Yeah.
It might have been 2008 going into 2009, but the point is right there.
Right.
That was my adoption of it. It took me a long time relative to a lot of my friends that were introduced to the internet, into Instant Messenger. They were introduced. That's a huge one. I remember Logan. We've talked about Logan because we were talking about Logan earlier today. Logan, huge friend of mine. I remember the first time he introduced me to the
MSN.
MSN.
That's what it was.
They had a chat bot, right? Like, MSN had a bot of some kind.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I remember being fast.
Oh, yeah, the bots.
This is gonna sound so dumb to you probably because this was normal, but to me it blew my goddamn mind. So this is gonna sound so dumb. The MSN had some kind of bot you could talk to or something, where like if you didn't have anyone to talk to at the time, you could talk to this freaking bot.
Which
or whatever.
is pretty cool for 2009 or whatever year it was. What year was this? Was this around that same time?
Because this would have been because I hadn't moved yet, just before, so like maybe 2007 or 6 or 5.
Okay.
Where I was introduced to, like, I had been over to his house at some point. I don't remember the year exactly, but I'd been over to his house. He had access to MSN. He could talk to all our friends that I had no access to. Mm-hmm. I did not. I could not talk to, if I wasn't at school, I could no longer talk to you. There were no cell phones.
I could no longer talk to you.
There were no cell phones. Smart or dumb or otherwise. There were no cell phones. I had no cell phone.
Right.
There was no cell phone. All right?
I understand.
There was no internet.
Easy, boy. I understand. Do you understand?
No, my point is that you have to understand that, like, once I went home from school, there was nothing.
I had nothing.
It's 2022 now, so that's why I'm trying to make it very, not even to you, Alex. I'm trying to make it clear to the listener. Right?
He's painting the picture. It's true.
I'm trying to paint the picture. There was no cell phone. There was no instant messenger on computer. There was nothing. Once I came home from school, there was no contact with anyone
Until the
from my
next day,
school.
yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make. I'm not trying to like.
Because he was staring right at me.
I'm staring like right at Alex as I'm saying.
Like,
this,
do you understand?
but-
Yes,
but
I understand.
Alex gets it, but what I mean is that you have to understand as a listener. No contact. I would go home from school to my small village in Illinois. There was no more contact with any schoolmates, period, until I had seen them at school the next day or whatever, after the weekend or whatever. I remember visiting my buddy Logan, which we've talked about before. I had spent like the night at his house for maybe a sleepover or a birthday party or something. He introduced me to MSN, which I don't even remember what it stands for. Messenger Super Network. I don't know what it stands for.
I have no idea what it stands
MSN. I didn't know what MSN was. It was some messenger chat. You do not understand how I didn't understand this. You do not understand how I didn't understand what MSN meant at the time.
For the record, he's looking at me again. I may not really, because Logan was also my introduction, just so you know. He was mine too. Even though I had the internet, I just didn't know that platform existed. But I remember thinking it was cool, but my mind wasn't blown. It was like, oh, you can talk to your friends. That's cool.
Yeah.
Because I was already online.
My mind was blown. The most top tier in like technology that I understood at the time was like
Floppy disks.
floppy. No, you're joking. No,
I believe
used
it.
floppy disks all the way through 2009.
Oh, boy.
Floppy disks. I used disposable cameras with film all the way through 2009.
Yep.
Anyway, Logan introduces me to MSN and how you just at a whim, if someone else is online, you can literally talk to them live.
in real time.
That was not a thing to me. You do not. There was no cell phone in my life.
Can I try for a moment? Let me try and explain this for a
Yes.
moment, okay? There was nothing.
There was nothing. When I came home from school, it was just me swinging on a swing in my backyard.
Imagine, okay, that's completely...
You do not understand that in 2009,
I walk a lonely road.
I was living in like 1999 in 2009.
I think
is what
I
I'm
have
saying.
a good comparison. Imagine just... Okay, spawning into existence as a fully conscious adult. And you see, okay, right? No, I changed my mind. You've already been a fully conscious adult, are surrounded by humans, but that's all you've seen. And for the first time in your life, after 30 years, you see a dog. Okay? You've never seen any creature besides a human
It's
before.
a wild story.
But you know what I mean? And then you see a dog for the first time. That's what it feels. Try to imagine how weird a dog would look if you've gone 30 years of your life never knowing any other creature exists, and then you see a Labrador. You know what I mean? Like, obviously it sounds outlandish.
And I get where you're coming from. It's such a
Culture shock.
Such an ordinary thing to see.
Right.
But for me, it was a culture shock.
Exactly.
So
That's-
anyway,
yeah.
our friend Logan introduces MSN to me. It blows my goddamn mind. And not only can you talk to anyone who's online at the time, it had some kind of chat bot or whatever that you could talk to. And it just... I don't remember the original point I was trying to make, but the point that I'm going to make now is that it blew my mind, the access to technology you guys had. It did. You have to know that where I come from is that I was introduced to technology very late.
It is interesting because...
Which is funny because I took to it really fast. I was one of the kids that when people had problems with their computer, they came to me, and I'm like, you understand that I'm making this up? I have no idea how any of this works.
It's also funny because we weren't, in the scheme of things, that far in front of you. It was a couple years tops. Tops a couple years. Because in 2005, which would have been 4 years prior, I had no idea. I was 11. The only inkling of the computer, I used the computer. Actually, I lied to you. I just lied to you because when I was 11, I was using Yahoo Messenger. So I lied. Forget it.
And I'm sitting here
I was about to give you this whole spiel.
Like, what's Yahoo Messenger? To this day, I have never touched a Yahoo
Did
Messenger.
you know that? Have you heard of it before today?
No. What is Yahoo Messenger?
Before MSN, there was Yahoo Messenger.
Before MSN?
Yeah, and during.
What?
It came and went. You won't believe this. This was 2004, 2005. Because
I remember Yahoo Answers, where you could ask questions.
Totally different.
That is a different scenario.
But yes, this is when Yahoo was still trying to compete realistically with Google in the early to mid 2000s. Like when they
This was all new to me at the same time.
Okay. So there was a messenger system, and you could actually have an avatar. In 2005, on your computer, you could have an avatar. That was huge. And then you could actually, when you were messaging people, which I had no one to message, zero. I had one friend who I would email sometimes. Shout out to Dalton. Miss you every day, buddy. I say that miss you every day like he's passed away. He's alive.
Alex's friend Dalton. Dalton. I know his last name. Can I say Meisner?
Yeah, Dalton Meisner. Yeah, he actually.
I don't want to like dox him or whatever, but like no, I know Alex's friend Dalton Meisner.
You met him once,
friend
I think.
for a long time.
Maybe.
I don't know that we've
or you've at least
formally met. I'm familiar with him because he was your like closest, bestest friend.
My first best friend ever.
First best friend ever.
In kindergarten.
Shout out to Dalton. He's not going to be listening to this podcast.
Can I give a shout out if you don't mind? I do have an actual plug for him really quick since we brought him up.
Plug Dalton.
I have a shout out to 815 Jewelry. He actually works with the company who provides jewelry of all kinds.
815 Jewelry.
815 Jewelry. That's so if you're ever in the central to / northern Illinois area, or actually they have a website. You can be anywhere. They're local to the Illinois area. Check out 815 Jewelry. Real good quality stuff. So anyway, I brought him up for. Why did I bring him up? Do you remember why I brought him up? I said his name for a reason. Man, this alcohol is great. Let me tell you.
This is we're a little deep on the alcohol. On 9% per can. You've only had one can, haven't you?
Well, I switched to a lighter beer because I'm a lightweight compared to you these days.
This is my third can of this alcohol.
Yeah, these days I used to be able to keep up. We would definitely compete each other. Now these days, he's got me beat on the tolerance side. He does.
On the alcohol tolerance side.
He does.
That being said, this is also my podcast. It doesn't matter how liquored up I get. I mean, the show must go on.
The show must go on. It's true. It's true.
The last 12 seconds of the podcast did not make it into the original podcast episode. If you would like to hear it, you can subscribe.
May I say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the last 4 minutes.
I do not know what you've said.
Yeah, you don't know what I've said, but you should listen at a later time before you. Well, I recently discovered that I left something in out of my podcast I was supposed to take out because Weston said he heard me say it at one part. Let's take this part out, and then I did it.
There's a part in Alex has a podcast which you should listen to, a 2Ps podcast.
The 2Ps podcast.
A 2Ps. No, the.
It's the. Wrong article. It's the. It's
I knew there was an article.
Yep.
The.
Yep.
It's not just 2Ps. The 2Ps podcast. The toupee. Alex
the
is dying over
toupee.
here. The
Toupee. The toupee podcast. Hats all the time.
The 2Ps podcast.
Yep.
And not the most recent. I think it was the time before that. I don't remember which one I told you it happened in. You were like, we're going to take this out of the podcast. You didn't. The whole thing's in the podcast.
I'm sure it was entertaining, whatever it was.
It was.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it was intentional or not, because I knew that listening to it, it would have been very difficult to edit out the part that you wanted to take out without giving context for the immediate next part.
I'm assuming
so,
it wasn't.
You needed something there to be like, why are you like slightly more awkward from where you were? Like,
I understand.
I knew that if you took it out, I knew what it would sound like, because I've got that editing brain as well. I've been there. I know what it's like. Like, oh yeah, take that. Dear future Weston, edit this part out. I know what that's like. I know exactly what that's like. And I'm like, okay, so I can tell the part that you want taken out. So like if I imagine that taken out, it makes no sense anymore. I was wondering, like, did you forget to edit it out? Or did you know for a fact that, like, if I edit it out, it no longer makes sense?
It's been so long since I edited an episode, I don't know. Because, like, we were so stockpiled up, and it
wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. Like, what you left in
did
was
we argue?
Not, like...
Is that why I wanted to cut it out? Did we fight?
Kind of, but, like, not, like, seriously.
Okay. Because there was one time where I know I cut it out where Steph and I literally started to fight on a podcast. Because guess what?
You have not fought like what felt like seriously on the podcast that at least got left in.
When you're together with somebody, and all couples fight, and we've been together so long, right? So we got to a point to where we started to actually really argue, and it wasn't even funny anymore. Not like the subway argument or even probably what you heard in that context. That was like, okay, we should get rid of this because it was just ugly. You know what I mean? So as long as it's not that, then I'm happy about it. You didn't close the door.
I did not. No, I was about. No, you didn't have. You don't have to stand. Alex is standing up to close the door to another room right now. I was about to do the same thing once he started a story, but here he is doing it for me.
This is a professional environment. We must act professional.
I don't claim to be professional.
I do!
I claim to be hasty.
You know what I love about just basic interaction with humans is that if you get loud, odds are they're going to get loud too. And he just did it. I just went, it did! And he got loud too. I love it.
It's true. It helps that we're friends.
So if I were your enemy and I got loud, you would get even quieter. Actually, you probably would because that sounds like you.
Out of spite.
Right, yeah.
But, like, because we're friends, I can read your energy, and I just match it.
Yeah, you do well.
I mean, I think it would go the other way around, too. Like, I know when we've done Let's Plays and stuff together, that if I try to put out an energy of some kind, you match it.
Yeah, and it also helps take out the friends part. We're also both performers. So, you know what I mean? So, like, sometimes you got to kind of adapt, read your audience, read, I guess, the people you're also performing with and match, because at the end of the day, you want to make the best product you can. If you're doing something together, what better way to do it than to work together? Makes sense.
Which, again, coming back to the Julius Caesar thing, which we kind of left off on, right?
Yeah, that's the recurring theme this episode,
That's the recurring thing, is that where did we begin to become friends in a creative level?
And
I don't know why that's been the theme of this podcast.
It's
we could be talking about so much. We could talk about so much. We could talk about the things that we've been doing in Tennessee while I've been down here. We could be talking about the things in our lives immediately. No, we're talking about what happened in 2009.
You know why? Because those other things we already talked about, I guess.
You are all insanely interested in what we were up to in 13 years ago. Clearly. You must have all been very interested. You're like, oh my gosh, what were you guys doing 13 years ago? Well, let us tell you.
Let us tell you. A video that you'll probably never see.
You will never see this video, despite Alex threatening to...
How long's it been? Not threatening. It's not a threat.
You've been threatening to...
I've been threatening to remaster my video.
To remaster this video.
God forbid. No, I've been saying I will, but it's been over a decade and I haven't.
It's been a threat.
Yeah, it's a threat because it'll never
happen.
happen.
You haven't done it yet.
Take a guess how much that microphone costs in front of you right now, and what you're doing to it. Take a guess.
I'm guessing it's more than the $60 my microphone cost me.
Significantly.
Significantly.
Yes, you heard me.
This is a $300 microphone.
More.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wait, what microphone is that? Wait, what am I in front of? AKG. Shit.
It's a C214.
I'm not in the microphone universe like you are, so clearly you're gonna know better than me. But like when I said $300, that was actually a legitimate guess.
Sure.
So when you said more, I'm like, oh shit.
It's a $500 microphone.
Oh, okay.
That I was able to get for $400 because there was a deal on it.
Yeah, sure. Well done. You have much better equipment than I do.
Thank you. That's the best compliment you can give me. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel good.
Much better equipment than I do, and I know that. That's why when I said $300, that was a legitimate guess. And then when you said more, I'm like, oh, shit.
Well, it's funny because that's that is the child to the mother of the it's called the C414, which is
I hate that all the freaking microphones have. It's just a string of numbers and
weird
letters,
name.
and
I
it's
know.
just hard to keep up with.
It is until you're a microphone nerd, and then you just easily keep up with it.
When you're in that universe, but I'm in and out of that universe, so it's like...
The C414 is $1,000, and that I'm an AKG lover. Shout out to AKG. This was the next one down. There's a few features that are gone, left from it. I wasn't going to spend $1,000 on a microphone, especially at that time, so that did the job for me.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm using... This is for the audio nerds. If there's any audiophiles that listen to this podcast, I'm using the SM7B, which you've probably heard of. Have you heard of the SM7B?
MS7NB. I don't
There's no
know
N.
because it,
The SM7NB.
that just sounds like letters and numbers to me.
This is made by Shure. You've heard of Shure?
I heard of Shure.
Okay, they may do headphones too.
Now
and
you're
stuff.
talking my language.
Okay,
That's
so
a word.
Let's start with the brand.
That's a
Shure.
word.
Right.
I can understand a word.
So the SM7B is the infamous Joe Rogan mic.
Okay.
He popularized it in a lot of ways.
I tried to start listening to his podcast. I had never listened to his podcast
Mm-hmm.
before. I started trying to about a week ago. I don't know if it's just the wrong episode. They like go right into it. He's talking to a bunch of like two comedians in his podcast episode. I'm like, I'm out of the loop.
Yeah.
I'm so out of the loop with what's going on. I don't know Joe Rogan. I don't know the two comedians he's talking to. I literally know nothing.
Right.
There is no introduction. They just start talking, and I'm so
sure.
out of. I'm so confused.
Because they're such an established audience at this point anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
And inconceivably, I'm sure these are famous people that don't need an introduction. God dang it, this beer.
for the record, you're on your third,
this
almost
is a 9%
done.
beer.
Yeah, you've had 27% in 2 hours.
Forgive me. It's starting to become difficult. Anyway,
This is
these
fun.
are three different people that require no introduction, and I don't know any of them.
May I say something? Changing
Yeah.
from Joe Rogan. By the way, SM7B, great mic, love it. But I like the the C214 better, the AKG, because there's less EQing you have to do. But that's a different conversation. What I wanted to say was that I've been a little more slow with my drinking compared to Weston tonight, and I have seen the slowness begin, and it's very funny because Weston usually we're from the same area. We both I
could feel the judgment from here where Alex is
shut
like,
up.
I can tell he's lost it.
There's no judgment because I've been there, and in fact, if I didn't have to go to work in the morning, it would be a totally different thing. But I would be doing my best.
If I have work in the morning.
Well,
what's your excuse?
That's where we're different. Even when we were kids, listen, even when we were younger, hanging out, I would be the guy that would leave first because I wanted to go to bed. You know this, and Weston would always be the guy that goes, why are you going to home so early? Like, stop, you can stay up late. I'm staying up late. I got work in the morning. It's like, you don't understand. There's two different kinds of people. There's people like you who don't need to sleep. Okay? And there's people like me who genuinely need sleep or else I will not be able to function. And I need my sleep, right? I need my 8 hours. So... yeah, go and finish it. Go and take your drink. Go ahead. I saw you grab
up.
it.
You see me reaching for my glass. You shut up, right?
This podcast has totally shifted completely at the end. How are we doing on time?
I don't know. What are we doing on time? What's it say? You tell me. Live on air. It's fine. Don't pause.
No,
Don't you
I
dare
can't, no,
pause.
I can't.
You're in charge of the controls. I see that.
I can't look at the time because I believe we're almost at 2 hours. I think we're about 10 minutes away from 2 hours.
When I run
Is this a two-parter?
guests, I try. No.
Okay.
With guests,
Well-
we run long.
We can run 3 hours and do a two-parter.
Literally, this can run 17 hours, and it's literally one episode.
It's literally one episode.
Listen,
You're slowly starting to do the thing that that you talked about.
It's literally.
In his defense, it might have been 3 beers, but they are very high alcohol content.
They are. They're 9% beers,
Which is a lot for a beer.
This is the third one. I'm just about
He's
to
about
finish.
and as he's
Which,
noticed,
it's not the only alcohol I've had today.
switch to water.
Yo, freaking Alex, switch to water. I'm the host. I'm screwed.
You can
Anyway,
do what you want to do. I'm here. I'm also a performer.
it's a fun podcast. Anyway, the
have fun.
point is,
What's the point? Tell me. Please, you tell me what the point is. I would love to know.
Oh, no.
Here's the point. The point, I will tell you the point.
Okay.
The point is that our friendship truly developed when we were creative together.
Yes.
I would say that it started with that freshman year project. It turned into the Julius Caesar project. We did videos since then as well, quite a few. Notably one of my favorites is the one we did senior year, getting a little bit closer to modern times, at least slightly, which would have been Behind the Shades.
Which is a video we have not talked about on the podcast, and I don't know if anyone knows. Behind the Shades was a really good video.
Yeah, it was our last one, at least from my era of. I used to have my production house was called Idiosyncrasy Productions, a play on words of idiosyncrasy. For those of you who don't know that word,
Google it.
And you can even Google it, idiosyncrasy.
I can Google it now on the podcast, but it will be far more fun if I do, so I'm not going to do that.
I know, right? But anyway, so we did a video. It was about four adult friends who lived together who all happened to be blind.
Yes.
And it was about the troubles and the trials and tribulations that ensue because of this. And it was just a silly thing. My favorite scene, and I don't know if I wrote this or somebody else did or if it was improv, but my favorite one, remember, four blind friends sitting on their couch during Christmas time, just hanging out. They all got their glasses on, and it's Christmas, so the radio's playing, and it's, "Do you see what I see?" And then our good friend Logan keeps coming back. His character goes, "I hate the holidays."
Logan.
Which is one of the funniest. I love that line. That whole scene is so good. I hate the holidays. It's so good.
It's not gonna make it. I'm gonna say it now because anyone is
blind.
listening understands. But I want to label this episode right now. I want to label this in dedication to Logan.
I know, right?
But that's not a good title for the podcast, so it's not going to be. But honestly, hilariously, our connection to video content creation has been Logan, who does not create content. I mean, which, to be fair, in case Logan hears this, he does create content, very we kind of wishy-washy.
He streams here and there.
If he's listening to this, Logan, hey, listen.
Logan, you know what? Hold on, wait. # bring back Design and Play Studios. Bring it back.
Design and Play Studios, but also literally anything. Be consistent with it. Stick with it. Don't give up on it. Find something that you're passionate about and keep doing it, because that's
the grind is worth it then.
That's the thing that you're not doing right now. But anyway, he's created content. Logan, I love you as a friend.
We both do.
Obviously.
As a lover.
We both do. As lovers.
Yeah.
As literally.
As literal lovers. We're the literal lovers.
As literally a.
This is awesome right now.
My improv training that I'm self-trained in wants to be yes and
right.
So
right, exactly.
So I'm clearly us as a three-way lovers. I don't know what to call it.
I just love watching this happen. That's what I love.
The point is, anyway, this entire episode has hilariously been dedicated to Logan.
Well, he's a very important friend. And in fact, I was going to say this earlier. I actually, strangely, even though I forget things, remember this. When you were, little circle back, little throwback here to the beginning of the episode, when you mentioned that you initially didn't like me very much and you were jealous that I took Logan away from you.
Yes.
Logan, the next year, became friends with Justin, who I was friends with already.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden I was deserted and Logan was friends with Justin. So Logan is complete, it's him. He's the reason.
Logan abandoning each one of us for a different friend eventually brought us all together.
I knew you said it. It brought us all together. That's exactly right.
Because our mutual connection was our friendship with Logan.
Really, though,
you and I became friends. Justin and all of us became friends. And we are all insanely close friends with one another.
It was really great because our friend Justin. He recently got married. And
Rest in peace.
We were all, amen.
I'm just,
and no,
I'm kidding. I know. His wife is great. I love her.
She's very sweet. No, yeah. Jokes aside, we all were together again. For the first time in at least all of us, because some of us have moved away, states away. Justin and myself have both have done that. So it was nice to have everybody in the same room together again, and it's old times immediately. My only regret is that I couldn't spend more time with him, but God, the mother effer got married, for God's sake. So of course he didn't have time to spend with us, but we'll do it something again soon. We were talking about a trip we could all make together soon, so we could do that. But it's nice how when you're really good friends with people, so like I said, you, your brother, the other names that we won't mention tonight, but that we know, if you're listening, we're talking about you. It's amazing to have those friends that they're never gone. You come back, it's like old times again. You may not talk every day, but as soon as you're there again, it's like you never skipped a beat. And those are some of the best friends I think you can have. So, that's what I gotta say. So that might be a good way to close this out.
I think, I think at the end of the day, the message of this podcast, no matter where we intended for it to go, was that there's nothing that quite beats a strong friendship built in trust, camaraderie, and community ship. Genuity.
Can I close this out?
Genuineness.
Will you let me close this out, please?
We've already been over this.
Was it genuineness?
Turns out, the reason I'm bringing this, I've intentionally. Alex is looking at me like, oh my God, you're lost. You're gone. No, this was actually intentional. I was trying to bring us to, we looked up, turns out genuity and genuineness are both words and they both mean the same thing. Anyway, those are your SAT words of the day. Thank you for listening to a Hasty Podcast. If you've made it this far, comment genuity, Genuity.
Do you mean genuinity?
You can pronounce it however you want, but it's spelled the same way. You've made it. Thank you so much for listening to a Hasty Podcast. You've been listening to myself, Weston Hasty, but as well as my friend Alex Duquette. Hey, Alex.
Hey. Hello. Thanks for having me on the podcast. What are we going to talk about today?
He's got a link in the description down below. Alex Duquette on YouTube, as well as AP Duquette over on Twitch. Please give him a subscribe and give him far more love and support than you have given me at this point, because he deserves it far more than I do.
Oh, you're sweet. Don't say that.
But whatever you do, I want to thank you all so much for listening to this podcast, no matter where you're listening to it from, whether it's on Spotify, Anchor, elsewhere, or YouTube. Thank you so much. Rate it as you will. Please, until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, wash your hands, and until next time, bye.
Bye.